What's up, everybody? It is Mr. I'm back today with the new video. In the background, we're going to be blasting my favorite album from Cradle of Filth, Dusk and Her Embrace. Excellent record, blending gothic stuff and black metal. And I did this once a while ago, but I'm going to talk about what I'm drinking here. This is Megadeth's signature beer, and a Megadeth album might pop up. This is very average to me. It's a Belgian ale. I'm not a huge beer drinker. I usually stick to whiskey, as seen behind me. But yeah, it's named after that one song off of, I think, Euthanasia, however that record is pronounced. Like I said, not much of a beer drinker. It's quite average compared to other beers I've had in the past, though. But yeah, cheers, mates. So, I'm going to be doing a CD collection video. This is not part 2 to that tape video. That's either going to be the next video or the video after next, depending on when the Metalhead box comes in. But yeah, a CD collection video, that's what this one's going to be. I don't do these often enough. I think the last one was like 2 or 3 months ago, and I still have all of this pretty much to go through. So let's get started. I got 10 CDs, continuing where I left off last time. First one is Disobedient by Stick to Your Guns. This is a follow-up to Diamond, which I talked about in my last CD collection video. Put out on Sumerian Records. This is like, I don't know, their 5th record or something. This is continuing where they left off with Diamond. They talk about a lot of political and societal problems that are going on in the world. And this came out in 2015, so if you're not a fan of the constant talk about the recent US election and shit like that, it doesn't really touch on any of that shit, but it talks on like homophobia, racism, shit like that. They try to center their lyrics around positivity as much as it can, though, but still incorporating all these problems that are still a problem, unfortunately, in this day and age. Next up is Divine Intervention by Slayer. Trying to get as much of the glare out of that as possible. Put out on American Records. This was basically the beginning of the end for Slayer, according to most people. Came out in 1994 and was not as well received as their previous albums. But of course, just like any Slayer record, there's a couple of good songs on here. The opening track, Killing Fields, I thought was a good one. The title track wasn't bad. Ditto Head. Those are my favorite songs off this one, but it's definitely not my favorite record. Probably my least favorite by them. And then next up is a record that I also don't think very highly of. This is All Time Low with Don't Panic. This is a record that even people who are fans of the band, I don't really see them talk about that much. This record came out in 2013. It was put out on Hopeless Records. And I remember the reason I bought this is because I was with a girl at the time, and this was her favorite band. And this record had just come out. And I don't know why I felt like being cool to her and buying it. But fucking did. I don't particularly like it. And next up is a record that I do like. Green Day with Dookie. This is an original version. It's got Ernie from Sesame Street on the back, and Sesame Street threatened to sue Green Day because of it, because it was used without permission. But this is their breakout record, their third record, their first major label record. Came out in 1994 on Reprise Records. Got them banned from Gilman Street, which was the non-profit club that they had played at for many years. And then they got unbanned from it in 2015. But loads of good songs on here. You got the opening track, Burnout. Of course, the singles, the 5 of them: Longview, Welcome to Paradise, Basket Case, She, and When I Come Around. But then you got other songs that weren't singles that get overlooked constantly, like Chump or Sassafras Roots, FOD, and then of course the hidden song, All By Myself, which was done by their drummer Trey Cool. A lot of people, this was their introduction to Green Day. It wasn't for me, just because I became a fan of them in 2008, and American 8 was already out by that point, so that was my introduction to them. But a lot of the older fans of Green Day from Gilman Street, they looked at Green Day as sellouts, and then they brought in a whole bunch of fans. They began touring the world, even more than they already were, because they had done a European tour before they had even signed to a major label. But yeah, that put Green Day into the mainstream. That put more punk, say that in quotes, because that record isn't a straight punk record. It's got the punk songs like Welcome to Paradise, Burnout. Those are like FOD. Those songs are more towards the punk side, but it's generally a very pop punk record. Next up is a Colorado-based band. This is called The Void, with Down a Dead End Path, put out on Relapse Records. If I'm not mistaken, this is their debut record. I believe they're from Boulder, Colorado, which is like 20 or 30 miles north of Denver. Maybe not even that far, but they play like some sludgy grind stuff, kind of along like the names of Napalm Death or Nasm or Primitive Man. Wouldn't be a bad comparison, but if Primitive Man played grind instead of doom, that would be more of a comparison. So like Primitive Man if they were sped up, basically. It's 10 songs. It's not super long. It's less than 30 minutes. So it's pretty much straight to the point, punishing sludgy grind type stuff. And they've kind of laid low in the last year or so. I know when they put out that record came out in 2013. They put out another release in 2016 called Are You Fucking Kidding Me? Or they put the shortened version of it on the album title, which is AYFKM. But that came out in 2016, so they've been laying low for the last year. I think they've done a few shows here and there in Denver. I think they might be working on a new record, so they're probably just shutting themselves away to do that. Next up is a record by a band I'm not a huge fan of. This is Drift by Era. This is a basic metalcore band. It's put out on Sumerian Records. It came out in 2016. And yeah, just basic, slightly down-tuned, open E string, metal chord chugging pretty much, with some of the octave playing on guitar. I can't even pick out what songs are good on here just because the record all kind of blends together. I think this is also like right around the 30-minute mark, so it's pretty short. Next up is a great record. This is Enverloc with Dusk Subside. I believe at least one of the members from Disembowelment is on here. It's 3 songs. One of them is an instrumental, put out by Relapse Records in 2012. And because there's members of, at least one member of Disembowelment in here, comparisons to them are not bad, but they're not completely accurate. It's like basically a lazy comparison. I can't really even think of any bands off the top of my head that I could really compare them to, but it's right around the 20-minute mark too, which it's, even for 3 songs on a Doom record, that's kind of short. But it's an excellent Doom record nonetheless. Like, those 3 songs will just pass by like in a minute, it feels like, because it's such a great record. Next up is Dystopia by Iced Earth. This is put out in 2011 on Century Media Records. This is a limited edition one. It came with 3 extra songs, and it folds out in like this. This outer part here is just a slipcase, And then it also came with a patch, if I can even get the fucking thing out. It came with a patch of the album artwork. This is a record that I picked up on a whim in like 2013 or 14 or something. One of my friends from high school that I'm not friends with anymore, he was a huge Iced Earth fan, and he was hyping me up to get this. And then I finally got it. And right around the time that I got it, he was telling me that it wasn't too great of a record, which I wish he would have told me that before I bought it, because I do kind of agree with that. I'm not a huge fan of Iced Earth to begin with, but if this guy was a huge fan of them, they were one of his favorite bands, and then after I buy it, he's telling me not to buy it, or that it's not a great record, which that was kind of a waste of money. But it's whatever. It's fucking 5-6 years later, so no point really reminiscing on that now. And then the Megadeth record, also entitled Dystopia. This is a signed copy I got when I saw them live. The first time I saw them live in 2016, I saw them live twice that year. I was supposed to see them when they opened for the Scorpions, but shit got in the way, so that couldn't happen. Although I was more hyped to see the Scorpions than Megadeth for the third time I would have seen them. But yeah, this record won them a Grammy. It's pretty great, reminds me of some of their older stuff. Definitely better than the last few records that they have done. I think it was their first record with the lineup change, because their drummer, I forget his name, and then Chris Broderick, I think that was the other guitarist. I'm not sure. One of them's Chris Broderick, the other one's the other one, but their guitarist and their drummer both quit the band. And then so they got Chris Adler from Lamb of God to fill in on drums for the record and for a couple of tours. And then they got guitarist, his first name's Kiko, I can't think of his last name right now, but they have filled in on the record. Kiko is still touring with, Kiko is a full-time band member of Megadeth now. Chris Adler is not. The stuff between Megadeth and Lamb of God got in the way of each other, and so his primary duties were with Lamb of God, and so they have a different drummer now. I don't know if it's just temporary or if he is a full-time member of the band, but it's a fucking great record. It's 11 songs, kicks off with The Threat Is Real, then into the title track, Fatal Illusion, and then Post-American World, and then a instrumental song. I can't remember, it's either Conquer and Die or Lying in State. One of those is a instrumental song, but it's just a almost flawless record from start to finish. Definitely well deserved of a Grammy, and even if they didn't win a Grammy, it's still a step up from the records that they've done in the last few years. And to cap this video off with a record that most people should know about. If you don't, check this shit out. Ecdysis, I think it's pronounced by Horrendous. This is their third record, I want to say. Came out on Dark Descent Records in 2013. Step up from the earlier stuff. This was my introduction to them, so this is always going to be considered my favorite record. I know there's some people who think the follow-up to this, which was Anoretta, that was a lot better. But for me personally, this one is going to top the list. And they're coming out with a new record this year. They got signed to Season of Mist, and I can't wait to hear that. Opening with The Stranger, and then some other songs. The final song, Titan, that's one of my favorites. Heaven's Deceit, the acoustic song, The Vermilion, which they put right in the middle of the album. That's one of my favorites as well. I kind of hope they do that again with this new record. I like how they put Brutality and then one acoustic song in the middle and then just keep killing you with Brutality to finish off the record. So yeah, that's 10 more CDs for my CD collection. Like I said, this next video, it's either going to be part 2 to my tape collection update or the Metalhead box, whichever comes first. Well, depending on when the Metalhead box gets here. But anyway, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing as always, and I'll see you in my next video.